Good evening, everyone. It is 6:30, so at this time I will call to order the October 24th, 2023 meeting of the City Council, the City of Lancaster. A few general reminders at the top of the meeting. Please take a moment to silence your cell phones and devices if you haven't done so already. This meeting and its participants are being recorded and live streamed. During the meetings, there will be several opportunities for public comments. If you're making comments, please do so at the microphone so that you can be heard by everyone here in the room and on the recording. Comments should always begin with your name and block of residence for our meeting record. Comments are no longer than 3 minutes per speaker per item. And in an effort to make sure that I'm not speaking over anyone when I'm letting them know their time, just so that you're aware, I have this light. It will turn green at the beginning of your time. It will turn yellow when you have 1 minute left, and it will turn red when you hit 3 minutes. So hopefully that means that I'm not talking over anybody. They get their full time, and everyone gets the same amount of time. At this time, for anyone who's willing and able, please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Mr. Harris, would you please call the roll of members?
Yes, Madam President. Mr. Ahmed.
Here.
Mr. Royo.
Here.
Mr. Cleese.
Here.
Ms. Craig.
Here.
Ms. Diaz.
Here.
Ms. Walsh. And President Baker.
Here. Councilor Walsh is excused from tonight's meeting. Before we get to our next item, I have an agenda announcement. This evening, item C on this agenda, resolutions, will be moved up to immediately follow the public hearing on the proposed comprehensive plan. That is because that resolution directly deals with the comprehensive plan. We'll now move to the approval of the minutes from the October 10th, 2023 meeting.
Motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Are there any council comments on the minutes? Hearing none, Mr. Harris.
Mr. Ahmed.
Aye.
Mr. Royo.
Aye.
Mr. Cleese.
Aye.
Ms. Craig.
Aye.
Ms. Diaz.
Aye.
And President Baker.
Aye. Our next item is proclamations, honors, awards, and resolutions of recognition. Mr. Harris, do we have any of those this evening?
We do not, Madam President.
Thank you. That brings us to our first public comment period. This is reserved for residents who have contacted the city clerk prior to the meeting to request the opportunity to address City Council. Again, duration of comments is limited to 3 minutes per speaker, and please begin with your name and your block of residence for the meeting record. Mr. Harris, do we have any of those public comments this evening?
We do, Madam President. First is Priscilla Glover.
Great. Ms. Glover, good evening.
I'm sorry, can you make sure the light on the, there.
Hello, my name is Priscilla Glover. I live in the 100 block of South End Street. And I have question and concern about those reflective poles or things that are on the corners of my block. They're actually taking away like one and a half parking space per thing, per space. And my neighbors and I have applied for permanent parking 3 times since 2019, have been denied because they're saying that the city's redoing the ordinances for permanent parking. But yet, those things are taking up 3 parking spaces from my block alone. So I'm wondering, first of all, why are those things there? And when can my neighbors and I apply for permanent parking?
Thank you very much, Ms. Glover. I don't have an immediate answer to your questions, but they're very good ones. I didn't have that information ahead of time to look and see what that is. I can tell you very generally that the reflective poles are bollards that are placed for safety, for visibility, for when you're turning off the street, so that you can see the cars coming down the opposite street. They've been placed across the city in intersections that were identified as a dangerous or high crash areas. But I don't know specifically about this particular intersection or about the ordinance changes and the denial. But I can definitely get that information for you.
Yeah, and also, where those poles are, the reflective poles are, it's a four-way stop sign. So I mean, like, it's kind of like redundant to have the poles there plus the four-way stop sign? Yeah. But I'm mainly concerned about permit parking for my block, because I live on the other side. So there's 3 blocks that are around Garden Court, and they all have permit parking, but my block doesn't. So I would like permit parking for my block. Yes,
Yes,
thank you.
thank you. Mr. Harris, are there further public comments this evening?
Yes, sir, Madam President. Next is Marcia Wright.
Good evening, Ms. Wright.
Good evening. As you know, my name is Marcia Wright, and I live in the 100 block of South Marcia Street in the southeast area of Lancaster. And I attend Raised Supper Church of God in Christ, which is on the corner of East End Avenue and South End. And as you know, parking is always bad in Lancaster. And when my family comes to visit me from out of town, they have to pay to park. But that is another complaint for another day. I am here today to ask how was the decision made to put all the poles and bars and poles up on around the corner of East End Avenue and South End. It is a safety hazard, and you have taken parking away from the church and the members. What notice was given to the church and the community that this change was coming? And what can we do to get back to where we was? I see some poles were taken down, but that was because of the bus. What are we supposed to do when we have a funeral of the church and the funeral home cannot park the hearse there? The city has to do a better job informing the entire community and service of changes, especially the neighborhood. I know I didn't get a letter that was coming out, and I'm not happy about the situation, and neither is my church members. And you said about a hazard, about safety on the corner. That's not safety, because I turn that corner a lot. And when you got to turn around those poles, you got to go more out in the street than you was before. And we have church. People want to come, been coming there for 50-some years. We has nowhere to park. People in the neighborhood has nowhere. You took about 8 parks away. That's really not necessary. And I want to know why, because it's a 4-way stop. You can see both ways, plain and clear. You can pull up and see both ways. So that's why I'm here.
Ms. Wright, I appreciate your comments. And again, I don't have those answers, but I will make sure that I get a full report about the decision. Director Campbell is raising his hand, and he is the director of the Department of Public Works. I'm going to allow him to step up, and he looks like he may have some information. Thank you. Director Campbell.
Thank you very much. I didn't want to stop other people if they had comments about the same issue before I respond. I wanted to give kind of a general overall response.
Mr. Harris, do we have further public comment to this effect this evening?
Yes, we do. Next would be Darlene Bird.
Great. Thank you for standing by, Director Campbell. Ms. Bird, good evening.
Yes, Lavina Johnson's going to speak on behalf of South End Concerned
Okay.
Neighbors.
Hello, my name is Lavina Johnson. I'm the chairperson for the Public Safety Committee for South End Concerned Neighbors. We have a list of complaints and recommendations. We need stop signs placed on South End Street, right by Green Street, so that it's safer for the cars to exit going east on Green and coming out of the parking lot at Garden Court. With the traffic coming down, they can't see, so they come out. And then cars have to swerve around, and they can cause collisions or head-on collisions, and people get hit. So we need stop signs to divide the traffic there to allow them to safely come out and to exit the parking lot. You know, me as a crossing guard for the Lancaster City Police, I've witnessed several near accidents, and it's very scary. And I avoid making this turn myself. And other things are the sidewalks down by our schools on South Ann Street, Washington Elementary and Jackson Middle School. The sidewalks are horrible. I mean, horrible. The kids trip, parents trip, they can't get the strollers, you know, and it's a hazard. You know, if the city could come down and just look at our sidewalks and just try to make an improvement. And the bike lanes, we are really opposing the bike lanes because the children now are taking it as permission to play in the streets. They go in front of cars, pop wheelies because they see this bike lane, and they're all over. They ride in packs. It's down in our area, the southeast area, is not necessary because our streets are compact already. If you have parking on both sides and you have bike lanes, there's no free flow for the traffic. It makes it dangerous. And believe me, as a crossing guard, they don't care about the people walking. They really don't care about the people on bikes, especially these kids, because they're disrespectful and they cause confrontations. So bike lanes down in the southeast area, it doesn't make sense. But if you guys could come down and look and see the whole sidewalks down from both schools, or, I mean, I tripped today walking, but it's pretty bad. Thank you.
Ms. Johnson, thank you so much for your
One more
input.
thing.
Go ahead.
Okay. We do have a petition. We have signatures that we're gathering, and we will present that at a later date.
I appreciate that. Thank you. And thank you for your input. Director Campbell, I'll allow you to respond, provide information. Thank you for being here.
Yes, thank you very, very much. This is an item or an issue that requires a lot more discussion, so I'm going to be as brief as practical. The primary purpose of us and the way we deal with the public right-of-way is for safety and for pedestrian friendliness and for a safer situation. In Southeast, outside of East King Street and South Queen Street, there are two avenues that are part of the high injury network. They are South Duke Street and all of Ann Street, from North Ann through South Ann Street. There have been too many accidents or incidents over the course of the last several years along both of those stretches. And frankly, I was fearing that the argument was going to be that we were too late coming to the table to make sure that some of these remedies were done. The types of daylighting that we're doing these are standard practices that we have implemented in other parts of the city and are very, very effective. They do take some getting used to. In no case that I'm aware of have we taken away any legal parking spaces. As we often see, many people park much too close to the intersection, and they've considered those to be parking spaces when they are not legal parking spaces. The one area that may have a measurement issue is that area along the Raised Church where the bus stop is, and that is something that we can remeasure to confirm that we're not taking away any parking spaces or creating a worse situation for that particular area. It is the case that these practices not only are things that we've been implementing over the course of the last year, but they've been part of our Safe Streets initiative, as well as part of the Vision Zero initiative. Most of this information is on the website and has been on the website for more than a year, at least a year and a half. We actually have reached out and been to the South End Community Concerned Neighbors organization, and part of their concern was that we were not enforcing regulations. One of the ways of enforcing is to create a physical infrastructure that prevents the problems in the first place. And that's one of the reasons why having the daylighting and the poles is very, very important. We very much encourage and welcome all of the arguments and the discussion, even if it's something that we're not happy to hear about, because we want to be aware of what we can do to make the situation better. We do encourage that for especially the series of issues that you described on South Ann Street at Green Street, continue to come to the Traffic Commission meeting where we can talk in much more detail, intersection by intersection, corner by corner, about what we can do and how to study those particular situations. We also invite people to use the Fix-It app to let us know of situations that you're concerned about. And I'm earnest when I say that we want to hear about the concerns. I know that people do not often like change, and there's a perception that spaces that people have relatively recently used as parking, if they were too close to the intersection, they consider those grandfathered in. They are not grandfathered in. So that's a very good question. We are, to address the permanent parking question, we are actually looking at several things right now. We will be coming back to not only Traffic Commission, but to the council probably in the next few months with a couple of recommendations of what we would like to do regarding permit parking. But at this particular point, statistically, the permit parking removes more parking from availability than it provides. It feels like it's creating parking opportunities for those on those particular streets, but it's just exacerbating the problem and making it worse in the fringe neighborhoods. And that is why there's currently a moratorium on issuance of new RPP.
Director Campbell, I'm going to just wrap up this discussion at the moment because, as you said, it does require a more nuanced conversation. Yes. I want to appreciate the folks that have come here tonight with concerns about these new bollards and the intersections, because there's certainly considerations to be had about safety and also considerations about making changes that make sense for a neighborhood and also how they're communicated. So I think there's a lot of different things going on here. What I'm going to ask for you, Mr. Campbell, is that I'm going to just ask you to provide a memo to me about the process, and then perhaps we can come up with a way going forward where we could have additional conversations with the neighbors before any additional changes are made about what they look like, identifying those intersections, because it sounds like we have some agreement on what those might be, before we proceed with any further changes, just to make sure that we are on the same page. I do agree with you about legal parking spaces and closeness to curb, but it does sound like we need to be concerned about how we communicate those things. So I'm going to have you wrap up this evening, but we'll continue this conversation. And I do appreciate you being here to address it, but this is a to be continued.
I do want to say that there will be additional messaging, both in terms of newsletters, public service announcements, et cetera, so that people understand the principles of Safe Streets and Vision Zero. I'll get this memo to you as quickly as possible because we are in a very aggressive program citywide to create safer streets throughout the city, and I don't want that to be halted because of the confusion.
I do understand. Thank you very much, and thank you to everyone who made comment about this issue this evening. Mr. Harris, do we have any further public comments?
We do not, Madam President.
Thank you very much. All right. Our next item on the agenda is reports requested by council. Tonight, that's our public hearing on the proposed comprehensive plan entitled Our Future Lancaster. At this point, I'm going to be opening the public hearing. We have a court reporter present that will be recording the content of this hearing as required by law. So that hearing is now open again. And I will allow Councilor Craig to introduce our presentation this evening.
Thank you, Council President. Tonight's public hearing is being held because we have come to the final stage of the comprehensive plan development process, Our Future Lancaster. The community and staff should be immensely proud of the work that has been done together. The City of Lancaster has created, through an outstanding level of public engagement and technical analysis, a new comprehensive plan during the period of June 2021 through October 2023. Tonight, we hear and record the finished product of many months of work by both staff and community. So, without any delay, I will introduce Douglas Smith, Bureau Chief, Planning and Strategic Projects, and Director Chris Delft, Department of Community Planning and Economic Development.
While we're connecting our technology here, I know this is an official hearing, but I'd actually like to just start on a personal note as we're getting ready. I started my city planning career in 2004. I've had the privilege of either managing directly or overseeing over 50 major planning initiatives, planning studies, et cetera. This comprehensive plan process has been truly special. I would say that this has been among the best, if not the best project that I have worked on in my career. And that really is a reflection of the dedication of the residents who participated in the plan, the community stakeholders, nonprofit organization leaders, staff across many city departments, and City Council and Mayor Sirachi, who's been a tremendous advocate for the plan as well. Wanted to note that Mayor Sirachi has a family commitment tonight and could not make it. Again, she has been a tremendous partner and supporter of this plan since the very beginning. Okay, can we see the presentation here? Still working on our technology view. Yes. Okay, last thing is we're getting set up. I think it's probably also worth noting that we are 3 years into the comprehensive process at this point, and I will apologize in advance that some of the material tonight is going to be more dry than in the past. We really focused on the policy content, for example, in the May 24th event. We really appreciate the opportunity to present at the October 2nd Council Committee meeting as well. One of the main purposes of the hearing tonight is to make sure that we're fulfilling the requirements of the Pennsylvania Municipalities Planning Code, and we have a number of components of administrative procedure that we need to complete tonight. So thank you for your patience and forbearance. We will try to move through the administrative components quickly without skipping any important parts. Okay, so getting started. This is just a reminder for the public who are here tonight or who may be watching from home, a reminder that a comprehensive plan is ultimately, it's a long-term vision for the community. The time horizon is a 20-year time horizon when we're thinking about applying the policies of the plan. You'll see here that in general, it is a compendium of policies that covers a number of different subject matters. It also has actions in the plan as well. Those actions are usually focused or oriented as short, mid, or long-term over a 10-year period. At its heart, I know we've talked about this before, the comprehensive plan is a land use document, and it's intended to direct the physical growth and change primarily for the city. Quick note on the historical context. This plan, should it be adopted by City Council in 2023, will be the fourth or fifth plan, comprehensive plan in the city's history, depending on how you count. It would be the fourth plan if we're just talking about the city proper. There was a plan, as you can see, there was a comprehensive plan in 1929, 1945, 1993, and then there was an intermunicipal plan that was completed in 2007 as well.
I'd also like to take a moment to recognize our funding partners. One of the first things that we did before we began the public process was seek funding to make sure that we had a robust community engagement process. Most of the funders listed on the screen here are people who are entities that contributed to funding the engagement process, and that is why we were able to take the time that we have taken in order to engage in dialogue with the community is thanks to the resources provided here. I want to also give a special mention to the Free Foundation, who I unfortunately missed on this slide, but they were another local funder that contributed to the plan. Of course, the High Foundation is a local entity, as well as Franklin and Marshall and the Pennsylvania Department of Community and Economic Development. In addition to funding partners, we also worked with a lot of local consulting partners. We thought that the best way to make sure that our community voice was embedded in the plan was to hire people from our local community to help us create it. So these are, I think, all of the entities that contributed to the outreach process, and we're very grateful for all the ways that we were able to partner with them. So thank you so much for everyone listed on the screen for contributing to this planning process. So just at a very high level, this is a timeline of the project, and really I want to just emphasize how deliberative we have been in this. We started in 2020 in the midst of the pandemic with scoping and applying for grants. In 2021, we began that public process with the community, asking residents and stakeholders what their values were, and what was most important to them about the city, things they wanted to see change, etc. In 2022, we began a more detailed phase of the outreach that began asking questions like, what kinds of development do you want to see in your community? Where are the assets or some of the things that you want to change in your particular neighborhood? And we began a much more detailed mapping process so that we can get to a land use plan and the comprehensive plan. Phase 3 began this year in 2023, and we took all of that community feedback as well as a variety of background studies that we've conducted, housing studies, market studies, to understand our community and the data and the trends, and we merged that with what the community what we were hearing from them, as well as best planning practice across the nation, and we drafted a set of policies. Phase 3 really culminated in the presentation at the Ware Center on May 24th, which kicked off our Phase 4, and that's sharing and adoption. So since then, we've been engaging in a public forum on this plan, including the Planning Commission and now here with City Council. I also want to just take another moment to talk about the approach that we had to engagement with the community. At sort of a 50,000 foot view here, these are the four main things that jumped out to me about our priorities in engaging the community. Number one was to make sure that we were embedding residents in the process. So I've listed here several ways that we've done that. We formed a comprehensive plan committee, which I will say more about in a moment. We've worked with the planning commissioners, which that's a group that we've expanded to 12 now, and all of them are city residents from across all geographies of the city. We formed technical advisory committees, which had about 150 different local experts and residents who took part in that. And also we conducted dozens of stakeholder interviews. We also aimed to minimize barriers to participation as much as we could. Some of the ways that we did that, we attended resident-led events. We would reward local residents and experts in ways that we could, whether that was providing them swag or occasionally getting them connected to paid opportunities. We provided language access as often as we could. In some cases, we even provided childcare and created low-tech engagement methods that were in person so people could participate easily. And we also used the arts. We used poetry, we used visual arts, we used sculpture in order to understand people's needs and desires for their future in the community. Most importantly, we asked clear and productive questions, and some of those are on the screen here. What do you love about Lancaster? What can be improved? What are your neighborhood's assets and needs? What kinds of development do you want to see? And where should housing go? And this is just a small snippet of all the many questions that we asked the community over the last several years. And finally, we wanted to be deliberative and transparent. We didn't want to rush the process. We wanted to be iterative so that we could allow opportunities for adjustments and feedback. We provided updates at public meetings. We engaged the press. We used social media. And we continued to add partners to the table when people let us know that they thought someone else needed to be present. So it really was an expanding effort over the years that we were engaging the community. I'd like to take a moment to note the importance of this particular committee. This is the Comprehensive Plan Committee. Before we did anything, our first funding opportunity that we sought with the High Foundation was to hire a facilitation expert and put together a group of residents who would provide us their honest feedback about the entire process as we went through it. So we were able to recruit 19 members from all around the city, from all different backgrounds. We strive to identify residents who weren't your frequent volunteers, but people who, were your teachers and your, were leaders in the community, but maybe also, they didn't have a seat at city council or some other place. We really wanted to find, volunteers that had a really honest perspective on the city. And this is a remarkable effort because we began this in 2020. These 19 people mostly didn't know each other. We were in the middle of the pandemic. We were meeting virtually for basically the first year and a half that we were meeting. And they provided us honest feedback. They engaged in hours and hours, more than 25 meetings during those 2 years. And we created bonds. We got to know each other, and many of these people began to reach out in support of one another as life happened. And I just have to say it was a really moving experience for me, and I just want to thank all the members of the Comprehensive Plan Committee, regardless of how many meetings they might have attended or whether they attended all of them. It was truly a major learning experience for us and provided invaluable feedback on the comprehensive plan. If there are any members of the Comprehensive Plan Committee here this evening, can I ask you to stand up so you can be recognized? Thank you so much. It's really good to see you all here. It was an emotional moment when we finally got to meet in person after a year and a half virtual. So thank you. I'll pass it back to Chris here to talk a little bit more about engagement.
Great. Thank you, Douglas. There's a lot more that could be said about the community engagement. I think that Douglas did a great job encapsulating the most important points. We got some very good questions during the council committee meeting that we held when we presented on the comp plan a couple weeks ago. We provided some general statistics during that meeting, and we were asked to break down that data in a little bit more detail, and we tried to do that here in the next slide or two. So as we have expressed in the past, we've, based upon our accounting, we believe that there were more than 14,000 interactions as part of this community engagement process. One might ask, well, what does that mean, 14,000 plus engagements? We try to show this here on the screen. This was 160 meetings, either in person or virtual. Over 4,100 engagements in person, 1,030 survey responses, 2,610 website visits, and the balance of that is over 7,000 interactions via social media online. I think it's also worth noting that we engaged throughout this process in 6 different languages, and we had some specific focused activities with native speakers of each of these language groups. If you take planners love maps, so we did try to show this in a geospatial format on the right side of the screen here. We're showing the number of events by quadrant over this 2-year plus period. In the Northwest, we're showing 12 events with 346 people. In the Northeast, 8 events with 342 people. In the Southeast quadrant, 19 events with 495 people. And finally, the Southwest quadrant, 16 events with 689 people. We also had many events in the downtown because that is our most central location. That 27 events, 1,020 people. Just a few more points to highlight here. We had 18 virtual events, which added up to 422 people. And one of the components of the engagement that I thought was the most fascinating, one of my favorites, was the Public Art and Community Engagement Program. That was a partnership between the Community Planning and Economic Development Department and the Department of Neighborhood Engagement, where we utilized the PACE program to draw information, inspire ideas using the artists and their work. This added up to 60 events with an estimated 800 people directly engaged across the city. One of the questions that we received 2 weeks ago was related to how many of the people engaged were city residents. We tried to apply a factor. Actually, let me take a step back. If you look specifically at the resident survey responses, we calculate that at 80, the ones that we know for certain, it was 82% of the survey responses were city residents. If you look at the events that are shown on the screen here, we think many of those events actually probably had exclusively city residents, but we tried to be conservative and apply a factor of 80%. And so if you apply a factor of 80% to that number of 4,114, we estimated that about 3,300 of those participants were city residents, at least the in-person engagements. Okay, we did share this slide at the last meeting, and just wanted to touch on this again. After all this work, we often get questions about the comprehensive plan. It's such a huge body of work. What does it actually do? What have we accomplished? What are the highlights of the plan? There were actually 2 articles in LNP yesterday about the comprehensive plan. One of those articles did highlight much of the policy content. It wasn't exhaustive by any means, but I think it was interesting to see what LNP thought were the highlights. I did make my own list this morning. I woke up thinking about this, and I wanted to share what I think are the most important outcomes of the plan. I think number 1, this plan facilitates more housing diversity and quality. And when I say diversity, we're talking about types of housing, physical types of housing, income level, making sure that we are thinking about different types of families so that we're serving different types of households. So diversity is important in a number of different respects, housing diversity. Number 2, I think the comprehensive plan facilitates more neighborhoods serving commercial uses throughout city neighborhoods. Number 3, it provides a compelling and coherent vision for the Conestoga Riverfront with nature and recreation as its foundation. Number 4, it places environmental sustainability, including air, water, and land quality at the heart of the city's economic success. Number 5, it champions green infrastructure and parks and open space as vital to city function and quality of life. Number 6, it advances a safer and more efficient transportation system that focuses on connecting people to destinations, not just moving single occupancy vehicles. And then finally, number 7, last but not least, it supports residents in their ability to be healthy, well, socially connected, and civically engaged. As I mentioned, we need to focus on the official formal part of this process for the hearing tonight. We did want to note for the record Douglas already mentioned that we had three public planning commission meetings in support of this process. At the conclusion of those three meetings, there was a unanimous recommendation by the City Planning Commission on August 16th, 2023 to adopt the plan. Following that stage, according to the municipality's planning code, we had to offer a 45-day interagency comment period. We undertook that 45-day review by the county, the school district of Lancaster, and adjacent municipalities. We did receive comments from many of those bodies, and we will touch on those later. That timeline the 45-day period officially ended on October 14th. We've provided, sorry for the huge legislative packet that we provided. That is one of the requirements, is that we provide all those comments directly to the governing body. So you have those in all of your attachments to the legislative packet as well. Finally, here we are today for City Council review of the plan. The municipality planning code requires that we hold at least one public meeting. As I said, we had three public meetings as part of the Planning Commission and one public hearing. The public hearing is tonight as we speak, and the plan is adopted by council resolution. It is not an ordinance, it is a one-vote resolution, and the plan becomes effective immediately upon a positive vote. Sorry. Did I miss one? Yes. Okay, I'm sorry. Our screen is a little delayed here. We skipped one more slide here, then I'll turn it back over to Douglas. A quick summary of the interagency comments. The Lancaster County Planning Commission did provide the majority of comments back to city staff. A couple highlights here. It is important to note that it was deemed, our comprehensive plan is deemed consistent with the county's Places 2040. It is deemed consistent with the Lancaster Intermunicipal Committee Growing Together. It's also deemed consistent with Lancaster Active Transportation Plan and blueprints. In the comments that the county staff made back to the city, it recommends that we elaborate on housing and funding tools, emphasize language access, address artificial intelligence, and improve word choice and language consistency. Many of those are reflected in our red line edits of the plan. In addition, we did receive comments from adjacent municipalities. Manheim Township, East Lampeter, Lancaster Township all provided comments. They were overwhelmingly supportive, and actually, in many cases, they expressed interest in partnering with us on multi-municipal efforts, which was very encouraging. Finally, we did get a one-page, a nice summary table from the School District of Lancaster of positive comments, also related to partnership with the city. So all very good stuff.
Okay, so there are a number of exhibits that you'll have to bear with me as I walk through to make sure that our court reporter, Ray Dagno, can enter these into the legal record. So Ray, if you don't mind going through these with me and just confirming that you've got a copy of each of them, I'll touch on each of these briefly, and City Council also has a copy of all of these too. So we'd like to enter as Exhibit 1, what is labeled Attachment 1 in the legislative package, and this is a packet of public comments from the May 24th policy materials. As Exhibit 2, we'd like to enter Attachment 2, as noted in the legislative package. These are the Planning Commission minutes from the 3 meetings held in July and August. Okay. And then for Exhibit 3, we have Attachment 3, and this is the City Planning Commission's recommendation to City Council for adoption. Okay. Exhibit 4, we have Attachment 4. This is the interagency 45-day review comments by the county, SDOL, and the townships. Okay. And I'll just note, Exhibit 5 and now Exhibit 6 are available on the table. If there aren't physical copies here, there are QR codes that you can scan if you'd like to see those documents online. Number 6 is labeled Attachment 6, and this is the annotated comprehensive plan. Okay, and then Exhibit 7, we'd like to make the cover memo to City Council. And then Exhibit 8, we have the legal advertisements showing that we legally advertise the Planning Commission meeting, the City Council meetings, and then also tonight's public hearing by legal ad in LNP. Exhibit 9, that is the PowerPoint presentation we're currently showing, and you should have a printed copy of that. Okay, and then finally, Exhibit 10, this is the draft comprehensive plan as provided to City Council prior to redline edits, which I gave a hard copy of on October 2nd at the committee meeting. Okay, excellent. And Exhibit 10, that draft plan is also available online via the QR code. I see all the copies are taken at this point.
Mr. Smith,
Yes.
just to want to make sure, did we officially register Exhibit 5? We talked about it being available, but I wasn't sure if it was officially recorded.
It is available on the table. It is available by QR code. And Mr. Dagno, do you also have that in your packet?
Thank you.
Thank you. And so Attachment 5 and Attachment 6 are really detailing the same edits. Attachment 5, we've actually shown the red line edits where we struck words or added words. The annotated version is the graphic version of the comprehensive plan with notes basically made on a separate page, letting you know where on the page we were making edits. So wanted to be abundantly clear about where we were changing things. Okay, I'd like to just walk through a couple of the edits here. So first, just want to again note on October 2nd, City Council received a hard copy of the plan. On October 14th, the city received interagency comments, which Mr. Director Delphs already went through. No substantial revisions have been made to the plan that was provided to City Council on October 2nd. And all of the reviewing agencies were supportive of the plan. So the edits that we've made at this point are technical in nature. Again, we've provided these in both redline and annotated versions, which were published online on the Our Future Lancaster website on October 19th, last Thursday. And again, you can access all of the documents there. The edits that we've provided are in response to those agency reviews and also staff proofreading. There are two kinds of minor edits that we're proposing. The first one is a batch of proofread edits. These include things like spelling, correcting job titles, and names. The second type of edit is a technical edit, and generally these are trying to achieve consistency in language, clarification of language, correct inaccuracies, and in some cases, further elaborate partnerships. So I'd like to walk through a couple of those examples to illustrate the kinds of edits that we made. So first, proofread edits. Example 1 is showing on page 116. We are listing the poet Evita Colon, who wrote an original piece of work for us, which is published in the back of the comprehensive plan. And we've added in red here, comma, and Poet Laureate City of Lancaster to make sure that we were providing her title. In example 2 on page 90, county staff provided a proofread edit to us, noting that figure 4-3 was labeled economic development map and that this was inconsistent with other places in the plan where we were calling it the economic development policy map. So that word has been inserted in red. I'll provide an example of each of the kind of technical edits we made as well. So example 1, this is a consistency edit. County staff provided a note showing that we were referring to a river trail, but not specifying that this is a water trail, meaning that you are actually, on a floating trail, you're going down the river. So we didn't want to confuse that with other kinds of trails, like walking trails, greenways. So we've used water trail to clarify that and create a consistency through the document. Example 2, this is clarification where our language was not abundantly clear. So this is policy BCC 3.6 on public safety services, previously titled fire and emergency services. Emergency is often equated with EMS service, and in this policy, we were intending to focus on fire and police. So we've corrected some of the language to be abundantly clear that this policy is focused on police and fire. Example 3, accuracy. In this case, we had some incorrect language about the Metropolitan Planning Organization, and courtesy of county staff and their comments, we've made those corrections to clarify the correct document to be the Transportation Improvement Program, TIP, and also that the long range should be 25 years and not 20 in its outlook. Example 4, partnership. This is regarding our action to create an employer hiring network, and we missed some key partners who have been involved in conducting this work already in the City of Lancaster, and that is the School District of Lancaster, Community Action Partnership, and the Chamber of Commerce. So that concludes our presentation, and I just want to again say that I'm appreciative of the opportunity we are to be able to present on October 2nd, where we went through some of the policy framework and the plan details, and remind everyone here that we've also provided all of the supportive materials on May 24th at the Ware Center, and we've been discussing those policies with the public and in public forums since then. Those materials are again available for reference. We have additional materials for reference should questions come up about anything else in the plan, any of the policies. And with that, I just want to thank you for your attention and pass it back to council.
Thank you very much, both of you. At this time, the public hearing remains open, and I will take any comments from the public on the presentation that was given this evening regarding the process for the plan. Again, if anyone is making comment, please do so at the microphone. Please begin with your name and your block of residence for the meeting record and for the hearing record. And please know that your comments are limited to 3 minutes. Do we have anyone that would like to make comment during the public hearing? Come right on up. You don't have to raise your hand. You can come right on up. Good evening and thank you.
Good evening. Can you? Oh, okay.
You got it.
Good evening, councilors. My name is Marshall Snively. I am president of Lancaster City Alliance and also a city resident in the 700 block of North Queen Street. On behalf of Lancaster City Alliance, I'd like to express our support for the adoption of the comprehensive plan. In fact, LCA's Neighborhood Executive Leadership Team was expanded in the beginning of this process to serve as a steering committee for this. Many of those of the people are here today, so again, thank you all for your participation in this. It's been fantastic. This team worked very hard with the city to ensure that there was public outreach and discussion throughout this 3-year process, and we applaud the city and this team for their efforts. And as you may be aware, Lancaster City Alliance also manages the city's economic development strategic plan, Building on Strength. This plan was adopted 8 years ago and is a 15-year plan developed to help guide the economic growth of the city through 2030. We are excited to continue to work with the city and community stakeholders to ensure that the comprehensive plan and Building on Strength are aligned, and that Building on Strength will be a tool in ensuring that the hard work put into the development of the comprehensive plan is not only implemented, but consistently tracked. So with that, I want to thank you. I also want to offer the opportunity for my colleague, Jeremy Young, who's more intimately involved in some of this process, to speak a bit as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Snively. Mr. Young, good evening.
Hi, thank you. Good evening. Jeremy Young, again, Lancaster City Alliance. I'm Director of Community and Economic Development, 115 East King Street, but also a resident of the 300 block of Pearl Street. Just wanted to follow up on Marshall's remarks and really emphasize the importance of the public engagement process that was part of this plan. So if I may, I'll make a few remarks. In 2020, when the world was upside down, an inspiring chapter began in Lancaster's planning history with the launch of the Our Future Lancaster Plan. This wasn't just a plan for the city, it was a plan by the city, a true reflection of the hopes and dreams of our vibrant community. The driving force behind this new plan, the first in 30 years, was the Comprehensive Plan Committee, which was spoken about, a group as diverse as Lancaster itself. This unique steering committee, comprised of residents of different ages, races, and income levels, symbolized a break from the past, embodying the voices that had long been waiting to be heard. Representative of the public and private sector collaboration that's made our city so special and which has resulted in positive momentum driving our community forward over the last few decades, Lancaster City Alliance, in partnership with City Hall, is proud to have been able to play a part in the process to host this committee. As Marshall said, our neighborhood's executive leadership team, which historically had been a group of business leaders, to a group that became truly representative of our community. Special recognition goes to Chris Delfs, Douglas Smith at the Department of Community Planning and Economic Development, but also Milsey Carrasco of the Department of Neighborhood Engagement, and Holly Kutz of Murray Insurance on North Duke Street, chair of our neighborhood's ELT, for their leadership and vision in crafting this unique approach to collaboration for this plan. The CPC's journey over more than 2 years ago began with intensive team building activities and training, preparing each member to embark on one of the most inclusive planning efforts in our city's history. The CPC's role was far-reaching, from selecting facilitators and planning robust community outreach to diving deep into the nuances of diversity, equity, and inclusion, to helping select the consultant team that developed the plan itself. This wasn't passive participation, it was hands-on engagement, shaping core values, setting key priorities, and weighing in on policies that will steer Lancaster into the future. What followed was truly extraordinary. Community engagement like never before, crossing language barriers to engage in not only Spanish, but Arabic, Nepali, and Swahili, among others. The result, as Mr. Delfs pointed out, over 14,000 interactions, an unprecedented number that was a testament to the community's enthusiasm and involvement, but also city government's dedication to a more democratic process to planning our community's future. A dedication that Lancaster City Alliance most certainly shares and supports, especially with our organization's increased emphasis on DEI in recent years. Finally, Lancaster City Alliance, as Marshall said, encourages your adoption of this new plan for our community, our future Lancaster, a plan which we truly believe is a roadmap that embodies LCA's vision for the city.
Mr. Young, your final thoughts. You're at 3 minutes.
Thank you, which is Lancaster City flourishes and everyone shares in its success. We believe that it's a roadmap not only for the city's development, but a blueprint for a community that thrives together. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Good evening.
Good evening. I'm Shelby Nauman, CEO of Tenfold and co-chair of the Coalition for Sustainable Housing. Our headquarters is located at 308 East King Street, and both entities are included as partners in this plan. I want to applaud the city staff for completing this plan and engaging a huge percentage of residents in this process to ensure that this could transcend change and remain a community-driven plan. I specifically want to call out the section of the plan focused on strengthening neighborhoods and housing. This plan accurately reflects the housing affordability crisis that is not only happening here, but across the country. Lancaster's somewhat unique mismatch of historic homes that don't align with changing household size and actively seeks ways to build density while also balancing preservation. This plan and the city's demonstrated support of creating and preserving affordable housing is a tremendous step forward for our community, and with progress already being made, will surely be a great playbook for other areas and surrounding municipalities. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Nauman.
Good evening. I promise we're not doing this as groups intentionally. My name is Kate Zimmerman. I'm the co-chair of the Coalition for Sustainable Housing with Shelby Nauman. The Coalition for Sustainable Housing is the advocacy arm of Tenfold. First, I'd like to take a moment to thank city staff for the many opportunities to engage with this plan, both as a member of the Coalition, but also in the many other roles I fill. As the co-chair of the Coalition for Sustainable Housing, I'd like to express support for this plan. I believe the section of the plan focused on strengthening neighborhoods and housing accurately articulates the crisis that is impacting not just the city residents, the county, the state, and our nation. The policies and actions align with many of the ideas proposed by coalition members who make up other housing organizations, elected officials, and community volunteers. And I applaud the work the city has done and will continue to do as it relates to this important issue. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Good evening.
Good evening. My name is Allison Gibson. I'm with the Lancaster Clean Water Partners. I live just north of the city, but right next to a city property, so I'm grateful for the collaboration I personally have been able to have with city for a green infrastructure project, both on my front yard and a city property as well. You know that feeling when everyone is moving together and in sync, they're all going towards the same place. Everyone's got a role, everyone has a voice and shares in that energy. This comprehensive plan reflects how Lancaster is creating that feeling and taking action to make it our reality. It's an example of collaboration in action. It puts the city in a leadership role, and it reflects the work of other partners, organizations who are also prioritizing clean water. Across the board, the use of data can drive decisions. That's essential, and this plan calls that out. The river and the community are key components of Lancaster's story, but they can't shine or be healthy without high quality and big goals that this plan gives us. I was excited to share this plan in particular, pictures of the public events with the Department of Environmental Protection. They're looking to Lancaster to be a leader, and Lancaster is doing that in so many different ways. This plan is one of those prime examples.
Thank you very much. Good evening.
Good evening. My name is Will Clark. I am the Director of Land Use and Transportation at the Lancaster County Planning Department. Mr. Delfs and Mr. Smith mentioned that the Lancaster County Planning Department reviewed this document on behalf of the Lancaster County Planning Commission, which is a 9-member board appointed by the County Board of Commissioners. On October 10th, they had voted to recommend you approve this document. As part of our review, we look at it from the county comprehensive plan and how this plan fits within the county's comprehensive plan. I'd like to thank Christine Lee and Matt Hoyer on our staff for reviewing this document and point out a few parts that talk about how our future Lancaster implements Places 2040, which is the county's comprehensive plan. And that focus is on the planning system number 3, connecting people and places. This planning system complements one of the county's 5 big ideas identified in Places 2040, titled Connecting People, Place, and Opportunity. The proposed plan does an excellent job outlining 3 major elements needed to connect people to the places they want to go. The plan concentrates on enhancing public spaces and streets in order to attract residents and visitors to these locations through design requirements that promote slower traffic, and also decreasing criminal opportunities. Signage requirements that complement the character of the city and provide guidance to locate key points of interest. The plan also addresses enhancements to the system to make it safer to travel from your home to these enhanced places. The effort to make this system safer is supported in the plan by a commitment to a timely repair of roads to reduce more costly repairs in the future, coordination with property owners to address needed sidewalk repairs, and a continued commitment to the Vision Zero policy plan. Finally, there is mobility and access. The plan understands that people have different mobility needs, and there's not a single way to move throughout the city or gain access to jobs. The plan identifies steps to improve access no matter what mode of transportation you have available to you. Whether by public transportation, bicycle, pedestrian, train, or by personal motor vehicle, there are improvements to raise access and mobility to provide access to jobs, healthcare, and educational opportunities. I thank you for your time tonight, but more importantly, I would like to thank Council, the Mayor, and the city staff, but the entire Lancaster community for creating our future vision. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Clark. Are there any additional comments for the hearing? Good evening.
Tony DeAstra, 700 block of New Holland Avenue. Y'all already know I like to make unprepared statements, and sometimes I get a little emotional, so I'll try not to cry.
You have 3 whole minutes.
I have 3 whole minutes. So I'll start with the thank yous. I want to thank you, Council, and Mayor Sirachi for allowing me to be on the Planning Commission to be a part of this process, especially because as a young person, sometimes we look for opportunities in other cities, and I'm very grateful to be here. I'm also thankful to you, Mr. Delfs, for your leadership in this, and you, Mr. Smith, for powering through this whole process, sir. Overall, I'm just thankful for what has happened here. I truly think that this, I'm going to consider it Plan 5, is going to make a mark for Lancaster City's future and may even make a mark beyond our community and other communities to be an example of what we can do when we work together. I'm going to get a little goofy, as the Gold Goose occasionally does. I think that you've really, maybe I should say we have really laid a golden egg here. And as this becomes a living document, we'll continue to see a return on investment on that. Thank you all.
Thank you, Mr. Dastra.
Darlene Bird, Ann Street. First, I raised a lot of questions at the prior meetings that we had, and I want to thank Doug for, we had some conversations between the meetings and satisfying some of those concerns. I looked over the book that you gave me, and a lot of the things that I've seen in the Southeast as we've been having lots of meetings, as you said, and a lot of the comments that came from the Southeast area about wanting a park was not necessarily put in the book or an area designated for it. The mixed use, which is one of the goals, there was no mixed use changes within the Southeast area. A lot of the changes that they talked about with housing did not affect the Southeast area. So again, I'm not saying I'm against the plan. Again, we stand here and say, when will we be heard? The Southeast has come, you had meetings, I sat on a lot of them, but there's no, it's nothing representing what we're telling you. So it's like, we come, we speak, we suggest what we want. I want to make public comments about the parking and the other issues later, but after going over the plan, I didn't see any of the input from the Southeast residents in the plan concerning the Southeast.
Thank you, Ms. Bird. Are there further comments to be entered into the hearing? Good evening.
Good evening. Hi, Council President, Council members. Amos Steltus, I live at the 100 block of South Arch Street. I'm also a member of the Planning Commission, and in my day job, I'm the SOE Director for Tenfold. I wanted to thank Director Delfs and Chief Planner Smith for all of your efforts to engage with our neighborhood. One of the things I really liked about this process is you didn't expect people to come to City Hall. You came to us. So you were at our block parties, our National Night Out events, our SOE board meetings, and I see many of the things that I hear from residents every day in this plan. We want affordable housing. We want quality affordable housing. We want local businesses that meet the needs of current residents. We want access to well-paying jobs that provide dignity. We want a city that provides services to and shelter for our unhoused neighbors. And again, I see a lot of these things reflected in the plan. I was also happy to see Manor Street identified as an emerging hub. This has been a priority for SOE and also for Lancaster City Alliance for a number of years. And also want to say that, I think the community engagement in this process was very thorough, but it's really the beginning of the process. And on behalf of SOE, look forward to working with staff to make sure that this plan comes to life, to make sure that our residents are involved in that process and benefit from it. And I'll close with a quote from my favorite urbanist, or one of my favorite urbanists, Jane Jacobs. Cities have the capability of providing something for everybody only because and only when they are created by everybody. And I think that's reflected in this plan. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Stoltzfus. And thank you for quoting Jane Jacobs, whose name should go into this hearing. Are there any further comments to be entered into the public hearing? Going once, going twice. I knew if I just asked again.
Good evening. Good evening, council members. My name is Christine Kennedy. I live at 10 North Market Street in the city. And going from the example that Christopher Delfs gave at the beginning, I want to share a story of mine around this topic of comprehensive planning. When I lived in the city of Cupertino in 2004, in the heart of high-tech Silicon Valley, I served on the city's first senior commission. At the same time, the city was updating its comprehensive plan. I have a master's degree in urban planning, so my number one goal was to have the Cupertino plan mention that it valued older adults. With a 3-year process and my 3-year term on the senior commission, I failed. Fast forward to 2018. I've been able to serve the city of Cupertino as a consultant to the city's age-friendly action plan. The action plan is comprised of 4 different projects. One of the 4 is the Housing and Creation Action Project. Housing Creation and Preservation Action Project. Douglas Smith serves as the city representative and the lead to that action project. The goal of that project has been to assure that older residents are represented in equitable housing goals and housing-related policies to afford current and future generations the ability to age in place within a supportive and vibrant community. The plan is intended to look at all ages. The project in the action plan is comprised of 13 key activities. I'm going to share a couple of them right now. Include at least 1 older adult in the comprehensive plan committee, protect and maintain and improve the quality of existing housing to help keep households safe and affordable. That's 2 of the 13. 12 of them have been completed within the comprehensive plan at this point. The only one not completed yet is the one that says include older adults in programs and projects as after the plan's implemented. So that's the only one left to do. And I want to close by sharing what David Rouse, who served as a consultant to the city and was the former director of planning for the American Planning Association, has said about our process, and I quote, "Lancaster City is poised to become a national role model for smaller cities to include age-friendly best practices in their comprehensive plans." This city's planning bureau has incorporated the needs, perspectives, and assets of residents of all ages, assuring that Lancaster City continues to be a great place to grow up and grow old. Thank you for your work.
Thank you, Ms. Kennedy. Are there further comments to be entered into the hearing? Come on up. No formality, just walk on up.
And you said to state our name and address?
Yes, please begin with your name and block of residence. Thank you.
Okay. Hello, my name is Jaima Lopez, and I live on the 200 block of West Vine Street. I really wasn't planning on getting up and speaking and saying anything. My anxiety is like on 1,000. But with that being said, I would like to tell you all thank you too, and us working together and y'all truly, because I also want to explain this system is working perfectly fine. It is designed to do exactly what it has done for centuries, you know, to not only just me, now my children, but beyond us, our ancestors, and, you know, it's way deeper than y'all, is what I'm saying. Y'all are the fish in the pond. So I appreciate y'all and the efforts that y'all truly made into wanting to listen to us. And it's a lot, right? This isn't going to be fixed overnight. All I ask is that everything we put into work and so many hours, you know, especially Douglas, thank you. You've played a huge role. And I want to give you that acknowledgement from somebody in the city that struggles every day with my children. I would like to thank you. And what I would like to say to you all is that I wish, you know, that we truly start to put these things into perspective, that it's not just something we hear you, but that's all we get, is to be heard. Let's get it, let's work. It's time for change. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Lopez. Are there any further comments to be entered for the hearing? Good evening.
Good evening. Susie Gomez, 115 North Reservoir Street, Lancaster. I just want to say briefly, I always write things down because it's important for me not to say something in error. I would like to thank the shareholders who all have a financial interest in this plan, those citizens who made it possible by publicly being involved and sharing their feedback. So let's thank all Vision Zero initiatives and see if our children will truly be one who makes it to sit on those green pastures in their own home with a fair job, a fair chance, and the same admiration. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Gomez. Are there any further comments to be entered into the hearing? Going once? Going twice? Going 3 times? All right. At this time, I will officially close the public hearing for this item, and we will now move into item C on our agenda, which, if you remember back from the beginning of the meeting, we moved up to this portion. That is resolutions, and we'll give us just a minute to get our AV set back up so we have our agenda in front of us. Thank you both for your presentations this evening. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Harris. Again, we're now moving into item C on our agenda. That's going to be resolutions. And we start tonight, and it's the only one, with resolution number 79, 2023. Mr. Harris.
A resolution of the Council of the City of Lancaster endorsing and adopting a new comprehensive plan for the City of Lancaster, known as Our Future Lancaster, a comprehensive plan for the City of Lancaster, PA.
Motion to approve. Second.
I would like to, Council President.
We have a motion and a second, and now I will recognize Councilor Craig.
Thank you. I would like to make a motion to amend the Resolution 79 to 2023 as follows. I move to amend the document attached to Resolution 79, 2023, titled Our Future Lancaster, a comprehensive plan for the City of Lancaster to reflect the changes shown in the city's Exhibit 6, red line edits to the comprehensive plan, and described in the city's Exhibit 7, a noted comprehensive plan, both of which were presented at this evening's public hearing.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to amend as Councilor Craig described. Again, these amendments were described in the hearing and are provided to council in the related attachments and are also available over there and available on the QR code as well. We'll begin with Director Delfs.
Sorry, may I interject just for a moment?
Yes.
The numbering of the exhibits has gotten a little bit complicated, and I think that we may have provided the incorrect numbering, so I apologize if that occurred. I think that the proper exhibit for the red line document is Attachment 5 and Exhibit 5. Is that what we all have?
Okay.
Yes, Attachment 5 is the red line, and Attachment 6 is the annotated, as Councilor Craig described. But you are correct.
I had them 6 and 7.
Yeah, the numbers were originally 6 and 7.
Yes, so
Mr. Harris, can Councilor Craig go back and make those changes to her motion at this time?
She didn't specifically say that in her amendment, so it's not necessary to do.
Okay. I thank you very much. Okay, so what we have on the floor is a motion to amend, again, as described, per the documentation that we have already received, we've discussed in the hearing. Director Delps, anything additional about those besides what we've already heard?
I would concur with Mr. Harris. I would just simply say, so long as the language in the motion specifies the red line document, I think that we are in good shape and shouldn't get tripped up on the exhibit numbers.
Thank you very much. Are there any council comments on the motion to amend? Comments from the public on the motion to amend? Hearing none, Mr. Harris.
Mr. Ahmed.
Aye.
Mr. Arroyo.
Aye.
Mr. Cleese.
Aye.
Ms. Gregg.
Aye.
Ms. Diaz.
Aye.
And President Bega.
Aye. That will take us back to our original motion that's on the table. We'll now be approving the resolution as amended. At this time, any council comments on the resolution as amended?
If I may, Council President?
Councilor Arroyo.
Just a comment, just wanted to say thank you to city staff as well as the Comprehensive Planning Committee for spending countless hours on drafting this plan that's before us tonight, and really excited for the framework that's going to allow our future to flourish. So just wanted to express my thanks.
Thank you, Councilor Arroyo. Councilor Ahmed.
Thank you, Council President. I just wanted to also thank Mr. Smith and Director Delps, as well as all of the members in the audience for being here tonight, your participation as a community, and the continued participation and continuing to bring up your concerns and continuing to engage in the future of the city. So I just wanted to thank you all, and thank you to the rest of council as well.
Thank you, Councilor Ahmed. I will also echo those statements. Thank all of the members of the Comprehensive Plan Committee that are in the room and all the people that have came to show their support this evening. This was only possible because of all of your efforts, and we'll only be able to execute on all of those things with your continued participation and our continued ask of you. So thank you for that. Are there any public comments on the resolution?
It's Susie Gomez again.
Thank you.
115 North Reservoir Street.
Thank you.
The red, I just wanted to clarify, the red is add-ins, right? You're amending it to add. So you're amending it to add city staff, engagement specialist, a chief of property maintenance and housing inspector, and special events. Is that correct? You're adding these people to the actual resolution that weren't there before?
There were names in the acknowledgements that either there was a problem with the title. For example, the title was wrong or incomplete, or there may have been another small error related to that person's name in the acknowledgements. And so we wanted to make sure that we got that correct. So the red lines do reflect either an addition or an edit.
Okay, addition or edit.
Correct.
So
Yes.
the engagement specialist was always there, or that's an add-on? That's an addition?
Correct.
And the James Nixon Bureau, this guy, is he here? Is he present today?
I do not see him in the room this evening.
Okay, he is a chief of property maintenance and housing inspector. Was he also an add-on?
Mr. Nixon had always been part of the comprehensive plan process and specifically worked the May 24th event. And Mr. Nixon is one of the bureau chiefs that falls within the Department of Community Planning and Economic Development.
As well as Kate Wright for this special event and program manager? I mean, it's just hard for me to understand a comprehensive plan needs this much staff.
Director Delps, if I may, I think.
But I just want to know if it was an add-on or if it was a takeaway. I mean,
And if you see
correction.
it doesn't have a line through it, it means it was an addition or a correction.
Okay, so
Yep.
that's my answer.
Okay, thank you very much. Are there any further comments on the resolution? Hearing none, Mr. Harris.
Mr. Med.
Aye.
Mr. Arroyo.
Aye.
Mr. Cleese.
Aye.
Ms. Craig.
Aye.
Ms. Diaz.
Aye.
And President Baker.
Enthusiastically, aye. Congratulations to everyone involved in making this possible. All right. This is pretty monumental, but we do have some additional business to cover tonight. But if you were only here for that, I will give you just a moment to step out before we continue the rest of our business. You're welcome to stay. You can go if you'd like, but I will give you just a moment to do that before we resume. Congratulations, y'all. Congratulations. So getting us back to where we're going to go back to item A on our agenda. So we're all just playing along at home. Okay. I will have us resume in just a moment. All right, for anyone who is not staying for the next items, we're not adjourned at this time, so we need to continue with our agenda. Sir? We have to continue with our agenda, but we do have a second public comment period, or if you have a question to a particular staff member. That's okay. Yes, we have a second public comment period coming up. Yep. All right, thank you, everybody, for bearing with us. We'll now continue with our agenda for this evening. We're going back to our legislative agenda, that is item A. Our first item under item A, and only item, is the legislative budget transfers. Mr. Harris.
Yes, Madam President, I can defer to our...
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, I apologize. This is actually going to be taken up by Councilor Ahmed.
Thank you, Madam President. Madam President, as you're aware, the city is self-insured for workers' compensation costs. Every year's funds to pay workers' compensation claims are included in the individual department budgets, but those claims are paid from the administrative services budget. So each quarter, we shift money from the departments where those injured workers have made claims to the administrative services budget to cover the costs. For the third quarter of the year, workers' comp claims were made by city police patrol officers. A total of $5,713.17 is being moved from the department budget to administrative services. Because this money is being moved between departments, this requires city council approval. So at this time, I make a motion to approve the third quarter workers' compensation transfers totaling $5,713.17 as proposed.
Second.
We have a motion and a second on the legislative budget transfers. Any council comments on the motion? From the public? Hearing none, Mr. Harris.
Mr. Med.
Aye.
Mr. Arroyo.
Aye.
Mr. Cleese.
Aye.
Ms. Craig.
Aye.
Ms. Diaz.
Aye.
And President Baker.
Aye. We'll now move into item B, items for the Heritage Conservation District. Mr. Harris, if you would.
Yes, Madam President. Considering the following applications and recommendations from the Historical Commission for improvements to properties within the Heritage Conservation District. First is 253 East Chestnut Street LLC, owner of 253 East Chestnut Street, proposes construction of a new masonry ramp or stoop across the facades of two adjoining buildings. And second is South End Concerned Neighbors, owner of 259 South Ann Street, proposes revision of previously approved plans to add a third-floor residential space to a two-story commercial structure. And both of those applications were recommended for approval by the Historical Commission.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Thank you very much. We have a motion and a second. Councilor Craig, is your motion, just to clarify, to approve both of these items together?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Both the East Chestnut and South Ann Street Concerned Neighbors.
And for our second, is that And you're in agreement? Thank you very much. All right, so we have a motion and a second to approve these items. First, is there any council comment on these items? Are there any comments from the public on these items? Hearing none, Mr. Harris.
Mr. Ben.
Aye.
Mr. Arroyo.
Aye.
Mr. Cleese.
Aye.
Ms. Craig.
Aye.
Ms. Diaz.
Aye.
And President Beke.
Aye. Thank you. That concludes our legislative agenda this evening. We now move into our second public comment period. That's open for open for comment about issues not on the agenda. Again, the duration of comments is limited to 3 minutes per speaker, and please begin with your name and block of residence for our meeting record. Does anyone like to give public comment this evening? Just come on up. We won't err on formality, but whoever would like to. Thank
Hello,
you and good
Tony
evening.
Koenig, outside the city. City water billing, monthly versus quarterly. I've complained to the city water department about that. They said attend a meeting here to convey your complaints. I do not understand why there is a convenience fee to be paid and then having billing to be now monthly instead of quarterly. So this is a formal request for the convenience fee removal, or maybe make it an option for people to pay quarterly instead of monthly. I just don't understand why it was done. I don't know if council heard from one person that had a big bill and now everybody has has to go through this. I think it's ridiculous. I don't know any other utility that I pay for a fact, that there's a convenience fee to pay your bill. That should be a celebration, not a penance to pay. Furthermore, it could be pay by check. It doesn't have to be a mail-in. Why can't we pay by phone for free? I don't understand why we can't. That's my request, to either make it free to pay by phone. That's what we're all doing. We use our cell phones to pay all our bills. And I don't understand why there's a convenience fee to do that. It baffles me. I'm highly, highly agitated. I've lived in Lancaster all my life and lived in the city for 25 years. And I don't understand how that came to be. That's my request.
Thank you very much, Mr. Koenig. I can speak to two of your questions this evening. The convenience fee is related to the merchant service charges for making a payment, which we cannot use our dollars for. They must be passed along. So all ratepayers need to pay the same convenience fee for pay. It's simply the payment processing fees. So similar to, I know I pay UGI and they take out a convenience fee when I pay. It's their merchant processing fees. Second, to your question about the monthly billing, monthly billing was instated so that we could have accurate bills and not estimates for all of our users, so we can detect leaks and to make sure that we are charging for what the
I've never
actual
had an
usage is.
estimated bill. I don't understand estimated bill. I don't have that.
Okay.
My bill's $40 a quarter. So I'm sending in a $10 check.
I appreciate your comments this evening, Mr. Koenig. If you would like to leave your contact information with the city clerk, I can look into your specific situation or have someone from the water department address you directly. Thank you. Are there any further public comment this evening?
Good evening. I'm Alessandra
Good evening.
McAlally. I live on the 100 block of South N Street, and my comment is regarding the new white markings and poles on various streets down N Street. I think that these poles are actually not helpful at all to make the street safer. it's the opposite is the case. Whenever you want to make a right turn around the pole, you have to get into the opposing traffic lane. And I almost had a collision with someone who came down the street, and I was in their lane. It would have been my fault because I was in the lane, but you cannot make a turn without getting into the opposing lane. So I think these need to be removed as soon as possible because they are actually dangerous. The reason why there are accidents on Ann Street is actually because people are driving too fast. Why are there no speed limit signs all the way up and down the street? There are kids playing. Why are there no signs? Kids are playing here. And why is there no enforcement of the speed limits? I think it would be the safest thing to just have speed tracking, and with, like one of those photo machines, that find people who race on that street. So that's one of my comments. And another comment, I'm a little bit concerned. In my neighborhood, there is a metal plating company operating. And I looked on their website. Apparently, they are complying to all the requirements for the chemicals to be disposed of properly, and etc. My question is there any enforcement, any checking of the air quality? Because I believe that there is a chemical smell in the air in my neighborhood. So those are those two comments. And thirdly, I wanted to talk about the sidewalks. I understand it's the homeowner's obligation to keep the sidewalks safe. It is impossible to keep a sidewalk safe because either the homeowner doesn't have the money to do so, and a lot of these sidewalks are lifting up because of the roots of the trees that are there, that are planted by the city and maintained by the city. So I don't understand why I, as a homeowner, have to pay for the consequences of these tree roots. That's my comment. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there additional public comments for this evening's meeting? Good evening.
Good evening, Vincent Smith, 200 block of South End. I want to first acknowledge President Bakley for listening to the citizens when they brought a concern in reference to the poles in the street, and you made a reference to city officials to hold off and address their concerns. My biggest concern is too many times we ask for citizens' input, and when they put it in, it's not heard, specifically the Southeast. Too many times we use this line that it's a rule or a policy all across the city. That doesn't mean it's equal and fair, right? It could be working in the Northeast, but not necessarily working in the Southeast. Too many times we ask city residents to come and voice their concerns, and when they do, it gets pushed to the side after we walk out of this building. We all know what urban renewal did to the Southeast, and we don't want it to be a repetitive effect. Too many black and brown people live in that community, and they feel like they're fighting the city every tooth and nail for every different issue. I understand you can't please everybody. I understand this is a hard task and a hard job, but when they come with an issue, I think it should be listened to more carefully, and their concerns should be heard and addressed validly.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. Ms. Bird.
Darlene Bird, 200 block of South End Street. I don't even know where to start, but first I'm going to tell you in 2018, we went to a traffic commission that was about 4.5 hours. We had about 20 members of South End attend the meeting. By the time they got heard, there was probably like one person left because it was 4.5 hours. We asked that we get a stop sign placed on South End and Green Street. because it was very bad. It was a bad accident there. There are always accidents there. Our concern is we now have the city coming, looking at safety areas and never even addressed the area that we as residents bought as a concern for safety. And that's South End and Green Street, but you're going to move ahead on East End Avenue on South End Street and say, we're going to make that safe for you. We, the residents that live in the area, are telling you what is unsafe and what can we do. Now, we did work with Public Works Department, and they came out and they put some signs for Garden Court, one way in, one way out for their parking. It's still not a safe intersection. I think as we come to these meetings, we do need to you need to know that you hear us and listen. You know, we just did this whole comprehensive plan where we put in a lot of input. We had residents that participated, and you approved it, but they're already doing things in our neighborhood. You know, you didn't even listen to what we said for our future as far as public safety, as far as Vision Zero. All these things you just passed and approved, and it didn't address none of the issues that we either brought up at the comprehensive plan meetings or brought before council. I mean, we're tired of being tired, and we're asking you, you know, we reached out to Steve Campbell. South End Concerned Neighbors had a meeting for a whole year. We met with our residents about how do we address parking. 6 years ago, the mayor told us she was going to rewrite the permanent parking issues. So we had a meeting for a whole year, and we brought information back to Steve. That's where he said the residents said enforcement. The residents that had permanent parking were asking to have that enforced. But it's like nothing has moved since. We are offering you suggestions, solutions, and we're not being heard. So we're asking that definitely the Ann Street and East End Avenue brought attention to more of the community. We're going to have more. Like I said, we got petitions going out. We're going to bring you with petitions. I don't know what it's going to take for us to be heard and things to be done, but we're in it because we want to be heard, and we want changes to be made in the Southeast area. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Bird. Mr. Dastra.
All right, Tony Dastra, 700 block of New Holland Avenue. This is a bit awkward for me because I do understand what the Southeast residents are saying right now, especially because it's a culture shift. We're going through a culture shift, and Title 75 on vehicles, which hasn't been enforced throughout the city in the last several decades, it does prohibit I'm not going to be talking about whether the spots are measured wrong, whether the bollards should be there, because I'm not talking about necessarily the paint or the bollards. I'm just talking about what the state law says. And while the state law could be modified, I generally do support these rules because they help protect pedestrians. And now that we're working on Vision Zero, this is the collision we're having, is a culture collision. So I'm just going to read from Title 75, Section 3,353 here. General under A, number 2. 4 of these examples are you can't park in front of a driveway, you can't park within 15 feet of a fire hydrant, which most of us know those 2, but then the other 2 are you can't park within 20 feet of a crosswalk at an intersection, which is an interesting point to make because of mid-block crossings, and then within 30 feet of the approach to any flashing signal, stop sign, yield sign, or traffic control signal located at the site of a roadway. I especially hear the Southeast on their frustrations because I will admit on the north side where we don't have the same severe parking problem, I actually walk around and go, I kind of want this paint here where it's not going to be so damaging to the issue we're having, which is tight parking. The south side of town does have the worst parking situation of the 2 halves. I do think there's a conversation that needs to be had addressing this culture shift about using the Lancaster Parking Authority and creating neighborhood parking garages, especially because those structures can be reinforced with steel and potentially provide housing on top. We do need to do something to protect the residents that are used to driving because we're not going to persuade them otherwise, and it kills some projects. For example, the one that was happening at the Mean Cup area, the Madison Street Hotel, and this is never going to end. So that being said, though, if you guys ever want help with addressing traffic commission. I did it for the 1300 block of Union Street, and I'm willing to help you out too. They had a curve issue. I went and I helped them. I guess I helped them pull the levers of government to try and get something done, and the city did end up putting down some chevron signs and some warning signs about the curve, and I plan on revisiting those residents to ask if improvements have been made. Moral of the story is, I hear you, I hear you. This is an issue, and I do hope that we can have some more conversation about where this should where these investments should or could be going, because I think there's an overcorrection right now, and it's actually starting to hurt the Southeast.
Thank you, Mr. Dastra. Are there further public comments for tonight's meeting?
I just have like a little comment or a
Thank
sidebar
you.
or something. I think if we're not going to allow, for example, my block in particular to get permit parking, why am I still getting tickets if I'm parking in other places where they have permit parking? Why not just get rid of the permit parking, so that I'm not getting tickets? You know? Yeah.
I agree.
Thank you, Ms. Glover. Yes. Are there further public comments for tonight's meeting? Come on up. Please begin with your name and block of residence. Thank you.
Lavina Johnson, 400 block of South Ann Street. As I said before, I'm a crossing guard. And my post is at Juniata and Ann Street. With those poles, I'm confused. Is it to protect pedestrians or keep the drivers from parking too close to the corner? Is that what it is for?
Yes, it's to preserve line of sight. The purpose is to preserve line of sight for those pulling out. So it's not pedestrian protection necessarily, unless they're, of course, in the crosswalk in the other streets.
Okay. So a block down, not even a full block of Ann Street going south, where Green Street is. Now, when they come out of Green Street, as I said before, they have to extend out into the street for visibility. Now, why wouldn't the poles be put there? For safety for the drivers. Yeah, because it's confusing to me. If up there they have to stop, it's different. There it's a parking lot, and then there's just one street coming out, and it's just flowing traffic. If those, why wouldn't those poles be put there as some kind of provision? But we are really, really pushing for stop signs with the flashing lights. The ones because with their being new, they need these flashing lights to get people's attention. A lot of people, they run regular stop signs that have been there for years. But I don't see how, if anyone has come down to see things and think that putting the poles on East End Avenue and Ann Street was smart. Instead of putting them down there to mark this area where somebody is really going to get hurt. It's horrible. If you go down there and just stand for 10 minutes, you're going to see. Better yet, drive that route. Drive it. Come down Green Street and try to turn out, and you'll see. Each and every one of y'all. Just try it. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Johnson. Are there further public comments for tonight's meeting? Please. We've gone a lot longer, although I don't advocate it for this evening, but we have.
I'll be very quick.
Go for it. Name and block of residence.
Mimi Shapiro, 239 North Concord Street, in, I guess, the West End. Kids on motorized bicycles are riding on the sidewalk. We can't have Vision Zero people getting run over on the sidewalks. I got hit by a car and had 2 broken legs, so I've already given my limbs to Lancaster. But something has to be done with the kids, and I don't know how to stop them. If you say anything to them, they're a little rude and mouthy. Should I walk with a cane and hit them with it? I don't know.
I don't advocate for that.
No, I can't advocate for that either. but how do we make them stop? It's just a good question. So,
Thank you.
and I'm sure if they do it in my neighborhood, they do it in your neighborhood too.
I see
Okay,
it as well.
thank you.
You pose an excellent, maybe existential question, but a good point. Thank you, Ms. Shapiro. Further public comments for tonight's meeting? Hearing none, we will conclude the public comment period. Thank you all for your participation. The next item is the report of the mayor. The mayor, as we mentioned this evening, had a family commitment this evening, and I don't have a report to deliver in her place. The next item is the report of President of Council, which I have none this evening. The next item is council comments. Are there any council comments this evening?
If I may, President,
Councilor Diaz.
I would like to thank South Ann for coming out and all the community from the southeast. I sympathize with you. I understand you. I've heard you. I've responded to you. But it's evident that a lot of times you're completely ignored, and I'm going to voice that again every single time. Thank you again.
Thank you, Councilor Diaz. Further council comments?
Council President, if I may.
Councilor Arroyo.
Thank you, Council President. I have a brief report, interim report from the Economic Development Committee. As you all know, City Council had authorized earlier this year $5 million of ARPA funds to affordable housing projects, which $2 million was committed to the Stockyards project. Unfortunately, due to the changing market conditions and other factors, Mr. Lesher has advised the city that he can no longer accept these funds. To fulfill the intention of City Council in allocating $5 million to affordable housing, the city has issued another RFP, very similar to the original, with one significant change. Applicants that previously received ARPA affordable housing funds are not eligible for the same project. Other minor changes are based on lessons learned from the previous two RFPs, which are intended to make responding and evaluating the proposals easier for everyone. A review committee comprised of Council President, Mayor Sirachi, Chris Delfs, Director of Community Planning and Economic Development, Elise Poi, Community Development Administrator, and myself as Chair of the Economic Development Committee will convene to review proposals. The request for proposals is currently posted on the Penn Bid website. The deadline for proposals is December 8th, with decisions expected in January of 2024. That concludes my council comment.
Thank you very much, Councilor Arroyo. We should make sure, and this is just a thought that I had, that this information gets posted on our ARPA page as well, if it's not there already. And thank you. Are there any additional council comments this evening?
Council President, just for clarity, so it's $2 million that is back for the RFP process?
Correct.
Okay. And the folks who may have already received RFPs, they could also reapply, they just can't be for projects that they have already been awarded?
Correct. They can't use it for the same project that it was awarded for.
Thank you.
Thank you for that clarification. Any additional council comments? Hearing none and having concluded our business for this evening, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. We are adjourned. Thank you.